This is my friend Mark Mcafee, and thank you so much, Mark, for coming here today and talking about all the good things, raw milk, that we're going to go into. Mark Mcafee is the founder of Raw Farm, which used to go by Organic Pastures for like 20 years until the name changed in 2019. So a lot of you may know him as Mark Mcafee from Organic Pastures, but Mark is a great man. He's a visionary. He has led the raw milk movement for a while, and I believe Raw Farm is a big reason why raw milk is becoming more known and people are wanting it. So I wanted to bring Mark on to just share some things, and Mark actually knew Aajonus Vonderplanitz very well.
Yes.
And
he was an original investor at Raw Farm.
Yeah. So
Organic Pastures.
Tell us about that and what he was like.
Oh, Aajonus was next level. He was a different kind of guy. He was way early. I got to know him in 1999, 2000, 2002, 2003. Unfortunately, he's passed on. He died in Thailand. Very unusual. He was probably 20 years before his time. Mm-hmm. He really understood the gut microbiome. He understood the immune system. He understood the incredible importance of whole food nutrition. And he was a mentor of mine early on. Yeah.
Was he one of the reasons why you started selling raw milk? And can you talk about the story of what made you switch to doing raw milk?
He came on a little bit after we made the decision to sell raw milk.
Okay.
The decision to sell raw milk was interesting. James Stewart gets most of the credit. He was one of Aajonus's friends. Mm-hmm. And that was at the garage in Venice, California, back in 2001. He called me up and said, "Hey, I understand you're producing raw milk." And I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "How fast can you get down here with as much milk as you can?" And we said, "Well, we are currently producing raw milk for pasteurization at Organic Valley." So we announced to the world that we were producing milk to be pasteurized at Organic Valley. That didn't last very long at all, because as soon as we said we were producing milk, raw milk, to be pasteurized, people started showing up and saying, "We want your milk raw." And we did not realize that Altadena, was a huge raw milk producer in Los Angeles, had just gone out of business in May of 1999. So literally, a few months before we started operations here, Altadena left the marketplace, leaving no raw milk for anybody in California. So here we were the closest organic dairy to Los Angeles, and people started showing up and said, "Give your milk to us raw." And a very important thing happened. I was invited down to the garage by James Stewart and Aajonus, his friend. And we just got milk out of our tank and bottled it by hand, didn't have a label on it or anything, and drove it down to Los Angeles in ice chests. My wife and I, Blaine and I, drove down in a Suburban, and we drove up to this place called the Garage in Venice Beach. And there was, I don't know how many people there. We didn't count. It must have been 7,500 people. It was just crowded, packed. This entire alleyway was just packed with people. They actually opened up the back of the Suburban, got into the ice chest and started taking the milk out, celebrating, and taking $10 and $20 bills and just throwing it in the car.
Wow.
And they said, "You're all out. Come back. Come back. We need more." We had like 200 half gallons of milk in there. They're all gone. And Blaine and I looked at each other and we had some conversations with people. I was like, "What the heck just happened?" And so we drove away thinking, we've got to have a creamery immediately. We've got to start doing this legally with the state of California and get ourselves established, because we didn't realize that Altadena was out of business and there was no raw milk. We didn't realize the virtues and values of raw milk, and we became tenacious students. We actually met the Stubies who ran Altadena. They owned Altadena. Lloyd Stubbe was a friend of mine, and he's passed away a couple of years ago. But he actually mentored me on what raw milk was. And we started really early on. So we were only selling our organic milk to be pasteurized for a couple of months, until literally we're overrun by interest in raw milk. And James Stewart and Aajonus and all those people down in Venice Beach were the first people to get the milk from us.
Wow. So if I understand correctly, the garage, I know it was raided and shut down.
The garage became a place called Rawsome.
Rawsome. And that was Aajonus's business,
yes.
Right?
Aajonus and Aajonus was a partner with James Stewart at the Rawsome place there. It was a membership-only kind of a foodie club. And that was after the garage. The garage was before that. And yeah, it was raided a couple of times. And the feds did not like the fact that somebody was doing raw milk and it wasn't licensed and permitted, and it was kind of moonshine. It was like illegal stuff. It was this weird control of the government wanting control over everything and wouldn't want farmers and consumers to freely distribute food between themselves. They wanted everything to be licensed and permitted and tested. And Aajonus and James were very much outside of that. We work very well within it now, but initially they were outside of those rules. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do a tremendous amount of work to stay legal and compliant now. And we did then as well, but initially it was very much a rendezvous with illegal stuff that were very much pioneers in the food freedom thing. Were the ones that introduced us to raw milk activities and all the benefits of it and the whole market. That was the target. That was the freedom-loving nutrition people back in 1999 were the beginnings of what we started.
So as your company grew, what was your relationship with Aajonus like? Like, would he come over? Did he recommend certain products? Because you only were producing milk, but now you have raw kefir, just launched a new lemon raw kefir, so good.
I love
raw
it.
cream, raw butter.
Well, interestingly enough, Aajonus came up with James and spent a couple of days with us here at the house. And they came and stayed with us. And they really said, you know, we got to have butter. We got to have cream. And we didn't have the money for it. And we were just scraping things together. And he goes, I'll get the money. So he was an investor, and he brought $20,000 in $100 bills up and literally slammed it on the table and said, make butter and cream happen. So we went down and bought a butter churn. We bought a cream separator from the Aajonus down here by Carruthers. And Aajonus was actually there when we did that. We bought that equipment, we brought it here, we installed it, and within a few weeks or so, or a month, we actually had cream and we had butter. And so there's also Martin Sheen, the movie star Martin Sheen. He played a big part in that as well. His wife, Sharon, she gave us $30,000. Wow. And she said, I don't expect to get it back. She was actually paid back and didn't know what to do with the money because she'd forgotten she'd loaned it to us. But anyway, Martin Sheen gets a lot of credit for butter and cream, and so does Aajonus and James. All together, people just wanted their whole food nutrition, and they came out of the woods to help us and got us going back in 2001.
What do you think of Aajonus's raw meat diet?
I'm not a raw meat guy.
Okay.
But I love sushi.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll have ceviche.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with raw meat. It's wonderful. To each its own. I think that there are certain nutrients found in raw meat and raw fats, which are lost in cooking. And so, you know, some of the healthiest people in the world are carnivorous. They they're carnivores. Dr. Paul Saladino and others. Yeah. So
he was just here, right? Like
he was right here. He was here a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
I'm hugely supportive of people that want to eat whole food. And raw meat's one of those things, whether it's cooked or raw, either way. Aajonus was big into raw. And he had some pretty compelling arguments for why raw was good, supported by science. So I have nothing against what he did. Right?
Did he bring that stuff around you?
Oh yeah. He bring his ice chest up and start eating raw meat in front of me. He's like, oh, you want some? Not so much. I'm okay.
So and your kids are young at the time, right?
They were younger. Aaron's 40 now. That was 22 years ago. So he was around 19, 20 at the time.
Wow.
And Kaylee she was in high school.
Wow, they probably thought, like, who's this weirdo?
Oh yeah, he was definitely the weirdo, but a friendly, great weirdo we love. Yeah. But you know what? What is sometimes the weirdo becomes the pioneer and the visionary for the possibilities of the future. Yeah. When I first started, I was the weirdo, and now I'm the local hero. So it's a matter of time and trend in education when people become, you know, from weird and eccentric and out there to the leaders and the pioneers and the people that are doing something that are impressive.
Definitely. I've learned a lot from Aajonus. I respect him.
Yeah.
I read both of his books, We Want to Live, which is really interesting. The story with his son and how he was in the hospital and like changing what they were doing to put water and raw honey in there. Like, that was amazing, and giving him raw dairy. So that opened my eyes a lot.
He was a visionary. There's no question about it.
So going into Raw Farm, because when you started, you probably never imagined that it would grow to this, or did you have an idea, or what?
No, I have a medical background. I was a paramedic for 17 years, 16 and a half. Ran 15,000 paramedic calls, taught paramedic medicine for the health department. My wife's a nurse. I have my pre-med. And I have an incredible appreciation and value for research and the best of PubMed. And here's the thing. I very early on recognized the value of breastfeeding. And that's mammalian raw milk. We are mammals. And so are dolphins. And so are horses and camels and goats and sheep and reindeer and cows. For 12,000 years or more documented, and it's probably went way back before then, that humans have consumed other mammals' milk. But humans have consumed their own milk forever as breastfeeding. There is no conflict in science right now at all. World Health Organization, the FDA, USDA, all the doctors and nurses, everybody, pediatricians worldwide, that breastfeeding is fantastic for children, and it gives an incredible amount of virtue and value to. Better test scores in college, less asthma, allergies, fewer ear infections, immunity, on and on and on and on. That same list of values is almost the same for consuming goat milk and cow milk. Dr. David Dallas, he was a professor at UC, Oregon State University. He's also part of the International Milk Genomics Consortium, which I'm a partner in. I've been a partner for now, supporter for 12 years, and I attend all their conferences. He said that quantitative means the quantity, the things found in raw milk between breast milk and cow's milk are practically the same.
Wow.
As far as, qualitatively, they're the same. In other words, the cream is practically the same. But quantitatively, the amount is different. So instead of having breast milk having higher cream than cow's milk, that's the only difference. The kind of cream it is practically the same. So the proteins, the fats, all the things found in the milk are qualitatively nearly identical, but quantitatively the amounts are different. That's why humans have been able to drink raw milk from cows very, very effectively for over 10,000 years. So when you look at the virtue of the health benefits found in breastfeeding, and you realize that they're practically identical to other mammals' milk, you realize, wow, there's a political hit job going on against drinking raw milk when there's so many incredible medical value. Medical benefits are just incredible, vast.
And why? Why are they doing that?
It's very simple. Very simple. In the 1880s, 1890s, there was something called the milk problem. Prior to that time, people lived on farms. All the new immigrants were on a farm. Everybody had a cow or goat, and everybody's neighbor had a cow or goat. Everybody had a cow or goat, or had a neighbor that did, as original settlers in the United States. And also in Europe, and Russia, and all around the world, in Mongolia, Nigeria, in Kenya, in Africa. Everybody had a cow or goat because it was a portable source of whole food nutrition. If you had rain and sunshine and grass, and you had a mammal, you would survive. You didn't have to hunt, you didn't have to fish. You had whole food nutrition right there. And by the way, the old milk was called cheese, right?
Or kefir, right?
Or kefir. So you could survive, you could thrive if you had a mammal that you could actually domesticate and keep with you. Well, if you think about that context, I had an incredible respect for the medical value, the medical benefits of raw milk. So my path took me down a whole different thing. And I realized that very early on from my pre-med background, that the growth of our company, the value of our company, the excitement of our consumers would be off the charts. Because from our very earliest consumers, we recognized and realized that these people are changed by raw milk. It changes their lives. It changes their gut. It changes their immunity. It changes their gut microbiome. It changes their ability to resist autoimmune diseases. Heals them of autoimmune diseases. Eczema, allergies, ear infections, colds, viruses. The ability to resist bacterial infections. All these things come from the first food of life. What other God-given food is there that is the first food of life? Breast milk is. That is raw milk. What is it? It's filled with all kinds, 2,500 different kinds of proteins. All of them have an associated enzyme with them called peptidases, A-S-E at the end, peptidase. Because there's peptides, they need ACEs, the ASEs, to break them down. Those enzymes are destroyed in pasteurization. So you have all these proteins and no way to really digest them. And then you've got all the fats and the lipases, the enzymes that go with it. And you have all the prolific number of 700 different kinds of bacteria. You have viruses in there. You know, all these things, the virome, the biome, all this stuff in there, all those things are the result of the competitive pressures of generation by generation. Only the best lived. Mothers that were able to breastfeed more and do a better job of making better breast milk have children that survived and thrived over 1 million years, hundreds of thousands of years. You pick your number. So you have this fantastic first food of life, which is given to the baby. It transplants in the baby an immune system that did not exist before birth. It nourishes that immune system. So it protects, it nourishes, and it directs. It does three things. It directs it because of all kinds of stem cells and all kinds of DNA and things that are going on with mRNA, by the way. It's found in raw milk. It's very interesting.
Really?
Genomic levels of it. It directs your body to do the right things. Babies are confused. They're born, oh, where's mommy? Cut the cord. You're on your own. No, you're not, because the breast milk continues to direct the baby from mom to baby. The couplet continues. So the whole gut microbiome and the genomics of what drives our bandwidth in terms of being healthy comes from biodiversity, comes from bacterial diversity. The packages of DNA and all the bacteria actually work with us at the cellular level to complete our genome. Aajonus did this way before.
Yeah.
Aajonus is way before. It was discovered in 2001, and he was all over it. It was the Human Genome Project, and he was all over that. It's just beginning to being taught now in medical schools. He knew about it 22 years ago. I've known about it for a long time, but I've studied it with the International Milk Genomics Consortium with PhDs at UC Davis because it's fascinating, and it fills in all the gaps of knowledge about why raw milk, why breast milk is so incredibly important. So I knew early on, and I would tell people, there will be no limit to the raw milk business we have and the service to humanity we have, what we're doing here. There'll be no limit to that. There'll be other challenges, but the excitement, because of what I heard from the consumers we had initially, saying, I have to have this because my daughter has seizures and this helps with the fats in the brain and keeps the seizures under control. Or my child has allergies or asthma and it makes it better. So I knew early on, if it happened with a few people, it happened to a lot of people. Because as a paramedic, I transported a lot of kids with asthma. I gave a lot of epinephrine shots, gave a lot of, intubation and CPR and saving kids' lives that had asthma. 13 children a day die in America from asthma. 13 kids every day. And that's acceptable because it's part of the medical paradigm. It's unacceptable to me, completely unacceptable to me. If those kids were on raw milk and had good nutrition, they would not die. They wouldn't need medication either, they'd be fine. So I knew early on that the sky was the limit. And it was just a matter of our imagination, our capacity to work. And we have a saying, you don't sell raw milk, you teach it. So why would anybody want raw milk? Because in the 1800s, they had this milk problem where all these people were on the farms, right? And then they brought the cows into the city. And there were no longer clean water. There was no longer any grass. There was no longer anything going on. The cows are kept in these squalor conditions with poor water quality, and they're being fed brewers, distillers, grains. It was disgusting. That milk was killing 30–40% of the kids that drank it. So pasteurization was not a way to clean up milk. It was a way to excuse filth.
Yeah, and what's really great.
That happened 120 years ago.
Yeah, and what's so crazy and great is that raw milk farms are held to the same food safety standards as the pasteurized plants, but the
After pasteurized.
Right, after pasteurizing. But you don't even pasteurize, and you still have to have the low coliform counts.
The coliform counts match what happens after pasteurization, but it's not because you've done anything to clean the milk up by some kind of technology. It's because you were clean from the very basic start.
Right, and they live, look at all of this land. Y'all can't see this, but there's so much
pastures
land here,
and the clean environment. And when you milk the cow, you care a lot about keeping that udder very clean. And you care a lot about whether that cow is healthy or not. We do a bunch of testing to make sure we have healthy cows, the right kind of conditions, super clean udders. So with the machine on, you're not getting a piece of manure. You're getting clean milk that's chilled rapidly. And we've actually pioneered that entire process. And we're not selfish. We've actually shared it with other farmers.
Yeah, talk about
the Raw Milk Institute has trained a couple of thousand farmers in the last 12 years. A couple thousand. We've actually listed, which is another name for certified, 45 farmers in North America and Canada. And so the raw meat common standards are now being used in other legislatures. For instance, Delaware right now is changing their law from illegal to legal, and they're using the Raw Milk Institute standards.
Really? That's amazing.
Minnesota's doing the same thing. Iowa did the same thing. There's 3 states that have actually changed their law and used the Raw Milk Institute standards and actually came to us and asked for our advice to help them build a standard which was good. So I am extremely excited about good changes in law, farmers connecting to consumers directly, using high standards, the clean water, the healthy cow, the right kind of, versus the tragedy right now in America, and this is really a tragedy. I mean, take a moment and really think about it. 5.5 dairies a day are being lost because of the super low milk prices being paid by the processors to the farmers, and those farmers don't know any consumers. They're selling the milk to be processed. There's a wholesale rejection right now of pasteurized milk. There's an embrace for raw milk and other whole foods. So in this tragedy, there's actually a very big light of hope with the emerging raw milk renaissance coming back.
Yeah, the old things have to fall. And it's funny because raw milk isn't even like raw milk, it was and always is. But then pasteurizing took over, but people don't like it anymore, especially the plant-based movement kind of contributed to this because people don't want dairy because of all the issues they had.
Exactly.
The way the cows are raised, people don't want to support that.
I wrote an op-ed once, and it was, an editorial was brilliant. It said the 10 things that pasteurization killed.
Wow.
It killed probiotic diversity. It killed the enzymes in the milk. It killed the milk price to the farmer because there's no longer value added in having clean milk. Anything goes. So it killed the farm. It killed the small family farm. It killed your immune system.
Yep.
It was 10 things. I can't remember them all. It was brilliantly wrote. And it's so true because when you don't have any value for milk, anything goes. Pathogens, you can have Listeria, E. coli, anything in the milk. It's going to get cooked. You can put anything in there. Manure, everything goes. And you can combine it with other dairies because it's going to get pasteurized. There's an old saying, Dr. Bruce German said this to me. He's the International Milk Genomics Consortium PhD who started the International Milk Genomics Consortium at UC Davis. He said, pasteurization was a solution to an 18th century problem. You can do a lot better. So it's an 18th century solution to an 18th century problem. We are in the 21st century now, 200 years later. And the interesting thing about that is we put people on the moon. We created all kinds of wonderful things. We've got an iPhone that's recording us around, telling the world about it. And we can't figure out how to make raw milk safe? I'm sorry, that's not that hard to do. You have to pay attention. There has to be a desire to do so. The FDA is stuck in the 1890s. It's tragic. But the people at the FDA are actually sent by industry to protect their market positions and their pasteurization stuff. So their paychecks depend on keeping the status quo going on. But what's interesting, we ignore the FDA. They're irrelevant. We care about 2 things, safety and the consumer. You take care of safety so nobody gets sick, and you take care of your customers and things thrive. You ignore those that say no about you, say, we'll talk to you later, bye.
One thing that I really admire about your company and family is you face so many challenges, especially with the FDA. And I know so many of us, like me as a customer, I get so angry when I hear about it and I just want to roar. But I think you guys handle it very maturely and you've actually found a way to comply and be friends with the FDA, but not sacrifice who you are and what you're doing. And because of that, you're making progress and you're able to get to more people. Well,
there's an old saying I like to say it a lot. They may have the guns and the money, but I got the truth of the moms. It's so true. And so we don't want to get in courts with them and litigate because they got the printing press. So they can have their attorneys fight us for the next 400 years. So we don't want to fight with them. We want to immediately comply with what's reasonable. What's interesting is the FDA doesn't regulate us. They regulate our cheese and our kefir, the pet food kefir, interstate commerce. They do not regulate us inside of California. Inside of California, we have CDFA, which is the California Department of Food and Agriculture. They're very friendly to us because it's legal in California. They respect us. They're friendly to us. They actually help us now. It wasn't that way initially. They were a little bit rough on us. But we have earned our respect with them. They really, really respect the fact that we know exactly what's in our milk by testing and testing the cows and all the things we do. Use the very most advanced FDA-approved technologies to do it. At the same time, it's totally counter to the entire FDA's philosophy that everything should be dead, long shelf life, pasteurized. But that philosophy is killing dairymen. And so we have dairymen all over. In Minnesota, we have dairymen in Louisiana, we have dairymen in Delaware. We've got dairymen everywhere saying, I can no longer exist serving the pasteurization processor. I want to serve people. And not everybody wants to do that, but those that do are thriving. Everybody's immune system is different. And there's a lot of people with messed up immune systems now because of all the antibiotics and all the preservatives in our food. Preservatives kill bacteria, right? Extend shelf life. So when you have people with messed up gut microbiomes, and that's where 80% or more of your immune system is, your gut microbiome in your gut, you have to be careful how you bring them back to better health and better immune system status, because if you get them sick, they have nothing to fight a bad bug. You know, that's what the raw milk kefir is so fantastic, because the biodiversity is so incredible, and it's so incredibly nutritionally dense, and it re-inoculates the gut that has been deprived of the biodiversity of bacteria needed to have the immune system.
And you were sharing the other day that even an employee who had just had surgery really couldn't digest anything. Even the milk was still like not great for her because she had a deep surgery. But then the kefir, she felt great. Her body started to revive.
My dear Jessica, love her to pieces. She had open heart surgery to replace some heart valves, and she's recovered wonderfully. She had it just last week, but they've given her so many antibiotics, and perhaps they were indicated. My gosh, you don't want to have an infection with that kind of a surgery, but you have to treat the effect of the antibiotic as well. And she had such pain in her stomach because of the antibiotics, and she couldn't eat anything. She started drinking our kefir. She felt better in a day.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can drink, as soon as I start drinking kefir or raw milk, I feel it. I just feel refreshed. Like there's life.
Feels good for you. And there's another thing that a lot of people don't know about is the serotonin and dopamine, which makes you feel good in your brain, are synthesized in your gut.
The gut-brain connection.
So the gut-brain connection is also gut-lung connection. There's all kinds of gut. Your gut's connected to everything, but your brain and your heart and your lungs, very important. If you want to feel better in your brain, dopamine is synthesized in your gut. It goes through your arteries and veins to your brain, and the neurosynapses start to work better. So, you know, if you're depressed, if you're upset, whatever, and you want to have a better feel-good, serotonin and dopamine is synthesized in your gut, make your gut better, your brain feels better.
Definitely drink some raw milk, get some sunshine. You'll feel better. I want to talk about where Raw Farm is today, because it has grown so much, even since when I've known it.
You've been with us, what, 3 years now?
3 years. So I don't know. I do the social media for Raw Farm. So
she's one of our special team members, part of the family.
And but yeah, it's crazy how much the Instagram has grown, but just the amount of people that are aware and wanting it, and the influencers, people like Paul Saladino, there's big actors and actresses. Like, how do you feel knowing that
Tori Spelling,
servicing them?
Danica Patrick, David Carr, the football player. I mean, just go on and on. Chico Vera. He's going to be here. Fighter. He's going to be here next week. It is becoming something that's real. It's real. And when people depend on their health, you need real food. And so people are sick and tired of lab-made things and chemically, long ingredient lists you can't read and all these chemicals and crap. A bunch of people said, how do I build an immune system? Well, whole food nutrition and raw milk being the king of it, queen of it, I should say, and especially kefir. And people started drinking a lot more milk and a lot more kefir and feeling a lot better and telling their friends they felt a lot better. And by the way, remember the studies in Europe, huge studies in Europe, where children have fewer colds. Colds are viruses.
Oh, right, when they drink with raw milk consumption.
That's right.
I've heard of that.
Dramatic reduced colds and influenza. COVID was an influenza. Just like all the rest of them. Just its own little hybrid, right? We've had SARS, avian influenza. They come in and out of our lives all the time. And our immune systems have to be adaptive and resilient.
Right.
So if you have adaptive, resilient immune system, well, come on, man, who cares?
Right, and that goes into what Aajonus taught was about, well, he was mostly about detoxification too, that if you're having a virus, it's detoxification, or if you're sick, but then you have to regenerate the dead cells with life, and that's what the raw food is. And it is a common trend. I see it all the time on Instagram, people saying, I haven't been sick in years since drinking raw milk.
Right. It's exactly right. And you hear this from dairy farmers that have gone out of business, say, I haven't drank milk since I lost my dairy because I won't drink the stuff in the store. And back when I had
it.
well, they just didn't, it doesn't taste good to them because they got out of the milk tank. And these dairy women were drinking stuff with all kinds of biodiversity in there, and they never got sick. So I've never been sick a day in my life. I drank milk out of the milk tank. But now, 10 years after they lost the dairy, he said, I get sick all the time because they stopped drinking milk because the pasteurized stuff is not acceptable to them. So it's very interesting that it's a trigger where people said, wait a minute, I'm on my own. I've got to be responsible for myself and my family. How do I build an immune system? Not everybody came to that conclusion, but a lot of people did. And so it became a very big trend. And people started doing it, and they started saying, wow, not bad. I like this. Yeah. And then people started saying, there's more to it than that. They started looking and doing some research, and Raw Milk Institute did a lot of teaching, and there's more raw milk available. And people recognized that the government suppressed this story, and we can't speak of it. I can't speak of it.
Yeah, you're limited.
And that really upset people that, why can't Mark Mcafee speak? Why can't he educate and share data? And why can't he put a link to PubMed on his website?
Yes, and I'm careful what I say too, because Raw Farm cannot talk about any medical claims.
Correct. This is not my podcast. This is Megan's.
Yeah, it's my channel, so we can.
You're controlling it. It's not being put on my website. I can say whatever I want, but you're saying it. I'm not.
So we can be a little more lenient, but the business cannot talk about medical claims or anything. There's just simple words like raw milk can help or raw milk can improve.
Correct.
Raw milk.
Very, very basic structure function. You cannot make any claims. You cannot actually put on our website any links to the FDA.
Yeah.
No PubMed communications. No NIH data that's been peer reviewed and published in journal published. None of the 50 some odd European studies. You can't put any of them. In fact, I was sued by the FDA because I put those website links up for their NIH. They freaked out. That if we haven't approved it at the FDA, you can't say it. It takes about $30 or $40 million in about 5 years to get approval by the FDA, and they don't approve food claims. Wow. In their opinion, only drugs cure. No food makes a difference. And that really has upset the conscious consumers as, I'm not listening to them anymore. Their advice sucks. I'm going to trust my farmer versus a pharmacy. Yeah. Farmers over pharmacies. Yeah. That's what's going on.
Yeah. I would love to see an America where it was founded on the people again and not corporations and institutions. But I think we're very well moving. It might be a slow walk, but it is going, and Raw Farm is a big part of that.
We are. Hippocrates, one of my favorite doctors of all time, 2,400 years ago in Greece, he said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food.
Right, he drank raw milk, right?
I don't know if he did or not, but I tell you what, he said some cool things. The milk back then was not pasteurized, so it must have been raw. Probably kefir.
I think so, yeah. There were some, I think scholars. There's another one.
Hippocrates. Well, he said also, let food be your medicine, medicine be your food, and do no harm. 3 grand quotes from a guy that 2,400 years ago said this, who got it right. And all disease begins in the gut. That was a big Aajonus thing. I love that. Yeah. So, yeah, you think about the gut. You make the gut happy through whole food nutrition, raw milk kefir, and you have a whole new lease on life. Yeah,
and when people drink raw milk, I know for me at least, your whole life kind of changes, because then you start to question, like, okay, what about my meat? And then you might get
your eggs and your vegetables and your berries and
and then you change your outlook on the medical system. So I think raw milk, it seems like it's so much, the raw milk movement is so much bigger than just this beautiful milk.
That's correct.
It's like something, it's bigger.
It's an enlightening.
Yeah.
It's an enlightenment of, oh, you mean I can actually prevent disease by eating better?
Yeah, and I can have power over myself and my family.
Exactly. And the next generations and reproductive stuff, fertility. I mean, it just gets so deep and so wide. My children can be really healthy and not be sick.
Yeah, I gotta say, I had a client too. She's in Los Angeles. She's like a big fertility acupuncturist. She helps a lot of, I think I connected y'all. I don't know if y'all ever talked, but so she's helped a lot of women struggling with infertility get pregnant. And she does a lot of spiritual things, but the number one thing that helped, and she did a clinical trial, and that's how she got her doctorate. Wow. Using raw milk. She would do an Aajonus approved drink, actually. Aajonus recommended this. I've drank this before. It's so good. Raw milk blended with raw egg yolks and raw honey. And I think she added
pretty powerful.
Turmeric and ginger in there as well. But that was getting women who were deeply struggling with infertility in LA having babies and these amazing stories.
And the whole vegan movement, where you don't get good fats and good cholesterols, your hormones are screwed up so badly because you need to have those fats for the cholesterols for your hormones to work properly. And so, yeah, we have a lot of people that are recovering vegans that are adding fats back into their lives and doing great. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It's awesome if you have good vegetables and good fats, animal fats, and good meats and good eggs all together. It makes a wonderful, balanced, delicious meal, right? And that's what we're all about, is whole food nutrition. And it changes people's lives. And what's happening now is people are feeling changed. They're telling other people they feel changed. And you got celebrities like Chico Vera and Tori Spelling and all these people telling everybody, Danica Patrick. And they are role models. And people want to follow a role model that's got it going on. Definitely. And that's what's going on. We have an incredible cadre of people that love our products. And we don't pay them. We don't pay anybody.
No.
We send them some free products once in a while, and it'll help them out a little bit, but they go crazy themselves, and that is beautiful.
They love it. They love it. We have some of them coming this weekend.
We do.
That we get to meet, which will be really fun. Wrapping everything up, I did want to say too, when I was thinking just about all the things your company has been through, and I can't say the actual word, that it just makes me think that what the enemy does for evil, God will turn for good. So people are waking up and choosing raw milk. All the things that your company goes through, more and more people know. Right. And it grows. So, wrapping it all up, are there any last things you want to say?
I want to thank you for being a fantastic part of our family.
Oh, thank you.
Working distant in Texas, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And helping people to answer the questions and educate and be part of the bigger movement towards whole food nutrition. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.